podcast, The Rhythm. Go live, Vegas on the screen, feeling the flow, so pristine. Boom, as the beats align, electric dreams, they intertwine.
All right, welcome in. It is Who the is Frank on Go Live Vegas and the One of Us Comics YouTube channel. Also, you can find us on Spotify, so make sure you check us out each and every week right there. Go Live Vegas. Of course, if you need anything done, in the podcast world, any video production, any of that stuff, reach out to Go Live Vegas. They've got you taken care of. We appreciate you, Go Live Vegas, and hosting us each and every week. I don't ever talk nicely about Aaron, the producer, but we'll give him the first introduction this week. Aaron, the producer, live in the studio here. My name is Steve Johnston. I am the current toy expert in history's Pawn Stars and owner of One of Us Comics in Henderson. Johnny Jimenez to my left, owner of the Toy Shack, the original toy expert on history's Pawn Stars. Outlet Brihez as well, and a whole lot of other stuff, plus One of Us Comics in downtown in the Arts District. To my right, Mr. Brett Lawson, student of the game, the Game Day Huddle, and one of the stable, steady hosts on Go Live Vegas here. You'll find him all kinds of different projects. Then, out in Bakersfield, California, you will find Mr. Brendan Allen, ComicCon.com senior editor, and AKA, if it needs fixed, he can fix it. And then, joining us in a little bit, Mr. Paul Vato will be joining us from some undisclosed location once he gets with us. Paul Vato, the comedian, paulvato.com, Vato Coin, and
Yeah, I gotcha. I don't know if they can hear us. Do we not talk, or do we? Okay, I think they can hear me, so maybe I'll turn the mic off. I did order headphones, and they came broken, so I gotta send them back. No, I didn't even put it on, you bastard. Wait, what are these? You didn't see shit. It already came busted. I was like, how do they send it out like this? What did they say? I can only hear Paul. Oh, yeah. Okay, you said. Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, it's gonna be difficult to sell the show.
okay, Paul still can't hear us, right?
Yeah.
I can hear you now.
There we go. There we go. Audio came back.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go pull Paul out, and then you'll bring him back in as I introduce Aaron, or Brendan. Sorry, Aaron. As I introduce Brendan, then you can pull Paul in, and then I'll say, oh, and Paul is joining us. Here he is. Okay, so pull him off there, and then we'll start right back up from there. I'm waiting for Aaron to pull you off. Hold on.
This might be too backlit, so I might need to switch locations.
No, you're fine. I mean, you're fine. Okay.
It's dark and mysterious.
I'm just going to give a quick countdown here.
Cool.
Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And Brendan Allen out in Bakersfield, California, comiccon.com. And, of course, if it's broke, he'll fix it. That's who he is. Mr. Fix-It is with us. And then I think Paul Votto is going to join us. Paul Votto, where in the world is Paul Votto? That's what I want to know. Paul, Where are you?
I'm in what I like to call the hood, a.k.a. Chicago's Gold Coast. I'm writing a show all about it. I'm in what we call the Viagra Triangle. It's all.
Now, we were guessing where Paul was at. I said Budapest. Man, that's really close. I almost got it. I almost nailed it.
Well, no, because last we heard he was still in Los Angeles, but I was looking out the window and I don't recognize that building for anything. That's not an LA skyline.
Is the world famous Waldorf Astoria.
So he got a view of the Waldorf because he can't stay at the Waldorf.
Right.
He's been banned.
We're in the proximity of the Waldorf. Yeah.
They will not let me anywhere near that place. So I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be anywhere that won't have me.
I feel
The doorman's on strict orders to call the police on site.
I feel like Paul is like trying to creep in the back door. You know what I mean? Like he's over there like wearing different disguises, trying to sneak into the Waldorf Astoria just to see if he can get in.
He looks like the guys on the news, like undisclosed location. Like, you know what I'm saying?
He definitely looks like protected in the witness program
In a
right now. Paul Votto,
in a bunker somewhere. Yeah.
AKA Ron.
Yeah. This is his new life, his new identity.
Paul, you
He's
got
moving
30
on.
seconds to pitch it. Let's go.
Delicious Saratoga water. Amazing. But more importantly, folks, let's not forget the Parse rum that I've been pitching. You can now find it in Chicago as well at my buddy's place called My Buddies. And of course, the always popular Kama Sucia. And what else am I pitching? That's about it.
The one time you give him just carte blanche, he doesn't even mention the Parse rum.
the Parse rum and Votto coin. Just go to VottoCoin.com. I need 500 unique holders in order for it to get verified. So I need even if it's only $1, buy $1 with your Phantom wallet, or DM me and I'll send you 100 Votto coin. Just DM me and you get it for free. I will send it, and that can start your journey into cryptocurrency. I am not a financial analyst. I'm not licensed, so I love giving financial advice. I also love giving medical advice. I don't have a license that can be taken away. So thank you, folks. I've been doing a lot of
If you have something that needs to be examined, Paul will take a look, but don't trust what he says about it.
That's
100%. I see that my coffee is ready. I have a built-in coffee maker. So shout out to Wolf Products. Maybe they'll send me something. So I got to go grab my cup of coffee and turn on some lights so that you can actually see my beautiful face.
This is definitely the longest 30 seconds of all
I was
time.
going to say, that's a soliloquy.
Johnny, what did you have going on this last weekend? What did you get into?
Outside of it being hot, super hot in Vegas.
yeah.
Well, with the little one, we went and explored. We went to a couple water parks, and we bought some great collections. We had some good cars and stuff come in, and it was our AC went out in our building on Fremont, so that was tough. The whole entire building, we had no
That's rough.
air conditioning all weekend, so that was brutal. But outside of that, it was a fun weekend.
Is that where you do like the bucket with like the dry ice and then like a fan behind it just to like try to make up
we bought
for
one
it?
of those portable coolers, and it's weird because Neonopolis, our water comes from the D. I mean, our AC comes from the D. It's like chilled water or whatever,
Okay.
however it works. So it's pumped over. So it's, I don't know who thought of that or whose idea that was or whatever it was, but it's really screwed up.
Someone had that done. Brendan, what did you get into this weekend? What did you have going on?
Oh, man. It's been a wild week, man, because Bakersfield stays in school a little bit longer. So we just finished up this last week, and it's been hot as hell here, too. I think it broke 106 yesterday. Wow. So I'm glad that my AC did not go out because I would have just died. That's too much. But we got the pool out back and stuff, so we've been just kind of christening in the backyard for summer.
Yeah, kids out of school. And then Brett Lawson. Brett joins us. Yep. Brett, what were you getting into this last weekend?
Well, obviously big sports weekend, so we covered that on everything on that front on the show we were just on earlier. But outside of that, kind of really actually went by fast. And, on the terms of the pop culture element, kind of just following everything regarding these delays from the cinematic standpoint with Marvel. Obviously, everything on the comic front we'll cover on the show today, but just different things. Like there's going to be no Hall H presentation, apparently. I learned that just a couple of days ago. And, not necessarily things that are like groundbreaking, but stuff that catch your attention to think like, oh, like as of right now, it may seem minuscule because I'm watching, Scotty Scheffler, or I'm watching the Yankees, or I'm watching this or that, basketball, the Knicks. And then I realize, oh, down the road, that's actually going to be big because when it's July and people are wondering what the hell, where's the Hall H, I'm going to remember there isn't.
Yeah, and that's crazy, and I'm glad you brought that up. And if you don't know what Brett's talking about, so at San Diego Comic-Con, every year, for as far as I can remember, Marvel is involved with making announcements or whatever. And the problem is that they don't have a production coming out until after Comic-Con in 26. So there's nothing new for them to talk about, only the stuff that's currently happening. And I thought, because they were being so aggressive with how they were doing the Thunderbolts thing, and it's the new Avengers and changing that whole concept and everything, that Marvel was going to run with this and maybe even do something kind of fun, maybe let out some Easter eggs. There were some photos from the Doom set that just came out that actually showed that we now know Deadpool is actually going to be a big component in this, at least in a scene, if anything. Also, we do know that Tony Stark will be donning the Iron Man suit because those images were trickled, unless they cut it, right?
Unless
and they use those as
unless that was done intentionally, because they have done in the past where they've filmed whole sequences and released set images and stuff like that, like leaked images, just to throw people off the scent of what's really going to happen. So Deadpool may be in it. That's what they're teasing, and you might get that other scene.
The
That's what they're
only
teasing,
thing I would say on that is that there was multiple shots of a scene that was actually being done, and
multiple shots instead of a green screen, though. They could have set that up in 5 minutes.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, it definitely looked like there was multiple shots.
But it's also interesting because the lack of a Hall H presentation for Marvel, you think in the wake of the delays, there would have been more of a reason, at least from the casual standpoint, right, from the outside looking in, you think there may be more of a reason to kind of appease that fan base. But now there's delays with good reason. I'm all for that. But with the lack of a Hall H presentation on top of it, now you really have this period where we know exactly what's coming on the horizon. We actually have to test ourselves if we're patient enough to wait, because normally gaps aren't that big in terms of their theatrical release calendar.
What do you think? Who do you think, or what do you think could benefit the most about Marvel not having a strong presence this year at Comic-Con?
I mean, realistically, it doesn't hurt anything, in my opinion, because, I mean, Marvel has so many, properties.
It's solidified.
It's like if Marvel isn't hitting, Star Wars is. If Star Wars not hitting, then Disney is. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's going to affect them too much. But I mean, for Comic-Con itself, I mean, there's just so much happening that I don't think it's going to make a difference.
See, I could see them, Disney leveraging some of their other projects and things that they have going.
Yeah.
I think of something of like the Berserker concept, right? That's out there, that we probably are going to get something big from them. So that might be some of the big takeaway this year. I don't know.
And it also... No, go ahead, Johnny.
No, I think it's good, too. I mean, for DC, that has a chance to hit.
For such a big summer. And I think that has something to do with it, too, because it really shows the confidence that Feige and the brass have with Fantastic Four. If they think that's going to be enough to keep us happy, keep us satisfied, whether it is, whether it isn't, they think it will be all the way until, the spring of or really winter of 2020. That's a long way to that crossover event, at least longer than we thought. It's probably for the better, but now you have to adjust the waiting period.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see where that goes to. Now, what did you have, Brendan?
I was just going to say, too, one of the things that, we do, this whole website, Comic-Con, is based on, comics and that industry. I've got a big echo in my ear. But the thing is that we don't do a lot of DC and Marvel reporting because they get enough press already, and everything that they do is already all over the news. It's already all over all of the different outlets that are out there covering this stuff. So the thing is that San Diego Comic-Con is such a pain in the ass to go to, and to do the production level or whatever, to do this huge panel, they don't even need to do it because they're already getting the press that they need. They could do an event like Yojo June is we're going to talk about in a minute here, from Hasbro, but it's a completely online event, and the technology is there. They don't even have to show faces at San Diego Comic-Con to get all the press that they need and to get the return that they would have gotten from this big production that would have cost a ton of money and a bunch of planning to get all the stars there and stuff at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting point just because in years past when they've had to have that type of presentation, they were so neck deep in their slate, whether it be stuff that just came out, stuff that is about to just come out, or stuff that's on the immediate horizon. Since we know what it is, but it's not as fleshed out or, as it just is really stacked, I guess you could say, there really isn't as much of a need to do it because the hype now sells itself. They know what we're all anticipating. It's not like they have to unveil anything in between now and then. They know what the next big step is. It'd be different if they had to kind of put up another notch in there, but that's not the case.
Yeah, that unveiling.
But also, not having anything for San Diego Comic-Con still got them a bunch of press because they're not going to be there. So whether they show up or not, they're going to be in the news.
And Brandon, really quick, because I know we have to move on. That's what I was going to ask you. Do you think in the rare instance, because Marvel is so big, it's almost better that they don't? Because now, obviously, if they throw, I mean, last year was big because of RDJ and Doom, and they changed from Kang Dynasty. It was newsworthy. Yeah. If it's not as newsworthy this year, you're creating the news by saying, maybe we'll show up, maybe we won't, and then you unveil that you won't. It's like showing up to a party fashionably late. Next thing you know, 2 hours show by, you're not even, attending at all.
Yeah, it's like Otani falling asleep in the game.
Exactly.
I'm wondering if this is an opening for Star Wars and the Star Wars projects that they've had because they've had a fall off. And since that's a Disney thing, that maybe that they're going to pivot into that because that's how I would look at it. Yeah. And speaking of Disney, my weekend, Brody and I got to watch the new Lilo and Stitch, which I thought it was done very well. And I was a little skeptical on it because I was like, they're kind of like using that whole cartoonish to, real life concept, right? And everything.
And it usually doesn't work particularly well for Disney.
And it doesn't. And this movie felt, and it had fun, and it was different than what the cartoon was. And I thought that was big because it wasn't the exact same storyline, but it had the same characters. It still had the same feel. It still had some of that fun. But it wasn't identical.
So it's not shot-for-shot remake.
No.
That's good to know because that was my big concern going in because I haven't seen it yet, and that's why I'm hesitant.
And they created like really good like conversational things. And as an adult, I was as engaged into the adult conversation portion as they were with. And look, I thought they did that with In and Out. I thought that they gave good adult interest in there at the same time. But I was pleasantly surprised. Good. I will say that. So we definitely checked that out this weekend, which was really fun. And then for me, unfortunately, a week ago Sunday, I got rear-ended. Another accident. Again. And so I'm in the midst.
Didn't you just get that, literally just get that fixed last week?
Well, it's kind of fun when things like that happen. So we turn right back around, and I am dealing with that. Got rear-ended at 45 miles an hour, and unfortunately the lady does not have active insurance at the time. She was lapsed. So that's making it even more fun. So treatment, x-rays, and a steady dose of treatment for the next month or so just to see where I'm at is going to be. So if you see me moving a little uncomfortably during this podcast,
he's hindered.
It is because my lower back is bothering me a little bit. And but I'm not going to complain about it. I'm not here for that. I'm here to talk about some fun stuff. But that was a big impact of my week last week. I spent a lot of time. In fact, I kind of went silent across the board because I was constantly on calls and back and forth with stuff and everything. And so
I know how you feel.
Yeah. And as Johnny said, if nothing else, not to localize it too much, but now Vegas is feeling like, Vegas in June, as we're in the second day of June. So there you go.
Is.
Yeah.
So guys, we're going to come back. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to take a break, though. And when we do come back, we are going to discuss some stuff that Johnny picked up this week that I think will be really fun. And then Paul Votto will lead us off at the top of the next segment as he's going to go ahead and interject what he's thinking about right at the top of this next segment. So, again, you're watching Who the F*** is Frank on Go Live Vegas, Spotify, and the One of Us Comics YouTube channel.
Peppermint Patty. Around the geek spectrum, in print, on video, and everywhere in between, the show never stops on Comic-Con.com.
Stop the dance! Feel the thrill! Chase the legends with dreams fulfill! In the game, where the story goes! It's all here again in these months! Yeah! It's all starts! Unleash swing! Fuel the fire, let the flame begin! And this all starts! Ignite your flame! Every path, every dream! Tuesday.
Go Live Vegas Studios, a unique multi-camera social media virtual content creators paradise. We offer high-end services using live streaming and film production for your personal or corporate, commercial or event and campaign needs. Pre-record or live stream to your audience on multiple social media platforms simultaneously. Fun and interactive with social media comments, phone lines, live remotes, audio Foley sounds, and Snapchat filters. Be creative, get recognized, and make money. We help you by providing an all in-house production team. Visit our website at golive.vegas.
Hey guys, so we just to fix that loop situation, we finish the commercial set and then he'll edit from here. So we'll open up that next segment here in a second. We want to get the loop thing figured out for you guys. Aaron,
Check.
is it gone now?
Hello?
Is it gone for you? Because he muted Paul.
Yeah, no, but I'm hearing myself.
Yeah, but
Half a second after I say something, it's coming back in my ears now.
He thinks it's looping from Paul. That Paul might have his playback audio too loud, and so the mic on his computer is picking up. So, how does it sound now that Paul's unmuted?
Check, double check. It's still coming back in my ear.
Okay, so it's Paul. So, Paul, what we're going to need you to do is you're going to have to mute your mic.
I was muted. So here, look. I'm going to mute it right now. Try it again, Brandon.
Yeah, mute it.
Check, double check. Hello? Yep. Okay, I don't have it now. Okay.
So, Paul, you're going to have to mute unless you're talking. You're just going to have to unmute yourself.
Great.
And I'm gonna look and see if we can figure out a mobile setup for you, with being in and out just because. But just
I tried getting one and it came broken.
Yeah, I seen that. So let's So what we'll do is we're going to make sure that we take and just kind of iron some of this out, because again, these little things like this creates a production issue that then forces us to have to go back and do all the editing and everything on. So it's stuff that needs to be fixed. You always worry about this when you're using your laptop's audio for both playback and for the microphone. So whereas like if you had a Bluetooth speaker that was playing, it would be less likely to feed back than that. And now you can't hear it all.
No. Beats Buds, $99.
Oh yeah, the Beats
and then
Buds.
I don't have to use my speakers at all. Like I've just got my microphone, and this is all in my ear.
Yeah, so that's not bad. So Paul, we'll talk. You and I'll have a conversation.
Okay, so why don't we just start from here, and I'll start the music.
Yeah. Yep. All right, guys, we're gonna count backwards from 5, and it'll be coming back from break. Ready? And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, welcome back to Who the F is Frank here on Go Live Vegas and all of the places that you get your content. Spotify, the One of Us Comics YouTube, and on the Go Live Vegas TikTok, as well as the Go Live Vegas channels on Facebook Live and on YouTube as well. So you can catch that content wherever you stream your stuff. This segment presented by our friends at Voodoo Brewery down in the Arts District. Make sure you stop by and check them out. This is a great time of year to go to a place like Voodoo. Awesome activities outdoors. Cool drinks, and of course, when it gets nice and warm in the evenings, it can make some of the more memorable time here in Vegas. So Voodoo Brewery down in the Arts District, make sure you guys do that. And now, Paul, you had something before we went to break that you wanted to have a conversation about, so go ahead and share that with us.
Yeah, on second thought, I was just going to mention that I too was rear-ended in Chicago, but that being said,
very different situation.
I just want to wish everyone a happy Pride is actually what I wanted to do. Pride is coming up, and a shout out to my cousin who just started a t-shirt company called Boardwalk Etiquette. So for those of you who visit Fire Island, etc., it's an excellent brand. But yeah, I just wanted to do a dumb joke about getting rear-ended in Chicago. So we'll pass on that. Especially now that I also know Voodoo Brewing is sponsoring this segment. They probably don't need to hear that. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. I'm gonna go on mute just so we don't have an echo.
It's like, Steve, I think you looked into your crystal ball there right before we went on the air, as far as the route Paul Votto took there.
I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't have called it any closer to the vest than what I said. So, but we'll have a discussion about that. That's totally fine. No, it's really funny. So, guys, you know, in our world, both Johnny and I, we buy, sell, and trade on a regular basis. And it's funny because he and I will have, in the same world, we'll be getting different things for different reasons. Like, there's stuff that comes to me that just doesn't normally, in like a huge amount comes to him. It's almost like we manifest it, right? And things happen. Like, I never, ever get vintage, like die-cast collections in. I don't ever see them. I don't have guys calling me up saying, hey, I've got 500 vintage Redline Hot Wheels I want to sell. Johnny gets these calls. And this week, you got one of those that's for the ages, right?
Oh, yeah. And it was kind of exciting because the guy's name was Kevin, and there's another guy, Kevin Redlines, that comes through a lot. And I thought it was just him, and it just so happened that they had the same name. But, yeah, the guy had a huge box of Redlines in the package. It was given to him by his uncle who had a gas station many years ago, late 60s, early 70s stuff. And it was great because he went to another toy store in another state, and the lady at that toy store said, you know what, this is out of my league. You need to go see this guy in Vegas. So the guy came to Vegas with his wife, and we made this amazing deal on these wonderful group of cars.
Well, we have some images of this. So let's go ahead and show that, Aaron, because it's pretty cool. So to put into perspective so you understand, each one of these cases right here are 4 feet wide, and this is on about a full case and a half of those cases. All original carded vintage Redline Hot Wheels. And then to the left, you can see all of the loose ones. And I'll point out just immediately on Viewpoint, and Johnny knows this as well as I do. If this was a picture that came across the board to us, we love all the carded stuff. But when we see the hot pink and we see the antifreeze up in the top of the loose cards right there, when you see those colors, that generally equals something fairly rare in that collection because those are rare colors.
Yeah.
Boys didn't want to play with pink cars and something that looks like a I don't know, an expired banana, right? Like those two colors probably aren't
baby
the best.
diarrhea green.
Baby diarrhea green.
Yeah, these and it's crazy is how vibrant the colors were. And sometimes even though you see stuff in the package, it'll still tone and still have some issues. The colors still change in these cards even when they're sealed. But these were all really like
pristine.
Yeah, really nice. No toning whatsoever. No spotting. Even the bases were really nice and shiny like they should be.
That's something that I think is unwritten about this. So like to bring you into the world of a Hot Wheels collector and especially a vintage collector, the 3 main things that they look at, and I'm not talking about rarity or like what card casting it is or whatever, they look at, are the axles bent? They look at, is there toning? And what toning is specifically is that little spots will develop in the paint, and it'll create discoloration where it almost looks like it's maybe, you know, white instead of brown or whatever it is, right? And then they look at the condition of chips and then the base. And on the base, I would say 80% of vintage Hot Wheels that come in, those bases are, they almost look corroded in a way, right?
Yeah.
They're very rough looking, and they shouldn't be. They were chrome.
Yeah, those spoilers are super clean. That heavy Chevy and a lot of we had there's a handful. There's about like 40 cars in total. These are like, I think, a picture of like 25 or 30 here. But yeah, it was incredible collection. I think we already sold like 3 or 4 of them, and I've been getting a ton of calls and messages. So I think those will be up in the store. I'm thinking like by Tuesday. So I have those all priced and ready to go. And those are things just like 12-back Star Wars.
Yeah.
They don't last long.
Nope.
I don't care. There's a couple cars in there in the $1,000 to $1,500 range. That Charger, oh my God! The picture doesn't do it no justice, but dude, it just glows. It really, really glows.
And when you get into this and what Johnny's talking about there in particular about how liquid right, and in liquid is how quick you can sell this stuff, is that these collections don't air themselves like this. We're lucky if one comes in with a bent card and the blister's all beat up and the guy's like, my dad bought me 2 of these because it was my favorite car and I just never opened the second one and it kicked around my toy box for 15 years.
Well, the thing is, like especially the muscle cars. Like if you're a little kid, those are the cars you're racing. The Charger against the Corvette against the Mustang, the heavy Chevy against the King Cuda. Like those are the cars you're racing. Those are cars that always beat to crap. So you open a box of Hot Wheels or a case of Hot Wheels, and those are the cars that are always chipped up and beat to crap or repainted.
Because they're used so often.
Yeah, because those are the ones you play with, and those are the ones that are worth so much. So, in this collection, it was a great find, and it just came in through the door. So,
well, and I think it's fair for us to pose. I think everyone here, at some point, Hot Wheels had an impact on your childhood.
Oh, absolutely.
At some level.
As you guys were discussing, I was even thinking to myself while looking at the images, I don't know if there is a more universal, at least for a certain age, collector's item / toy than that. Because even action figures differentiate by the actual IP or, by the actual source material. You may like action figures, but you may not like Star Wars. You may like, more anime-related action figures, superhero-related action figures. Hot Wheels across the board, man, it has something for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, for me, as an 80s kid, Real Riders and Stompers, like those were my 2 things, as a kid. And it was just, and I remember every single car. The reason my dad, it wasn't like we weren't spoiled as a kid. My dad was a garbage man, and so we'd get older stuff because he'd bring it to us from his route. But on top of that, we were 4 boys, so it was like unless we really did something good, then we'd go to the store and get something.
And I also think depending on where you actually are as you collect them, it's an exposure in many ways. Like you are seeing vehicles that you may not see until years down the road. I mean, like well into adulthood. And if it's vintage enough, who knows? You may never see it in the flesh.
Yeah.
So like that alone, even if you're holding it and don't really know the significance of it, you'll think to yourself, even if you have to go into your own cognition and think,
You get some good pizza in you. Get yourself a little bit of
the Uber Eats truck. I think he had that
dish.
too.
All right, audio's back. What I
Did
missed?
he just say the Uber's Eat truck is the favorite car of Paul Pato? Oh my God! And I thought it was the Schwann's delivery truck, but hey,
Schwann's just went out of business. You guys see that?
I did.
Dude, I
That's
love
why
the
I actually
Schwann's
mentioned
truck,
it. But yeah,
I did have a point before audio dropped out about just how prolific these cars are because, Johnny's brought up before the entry point for Hot Wheels is like $1 still.
Yeah.
And so when you were talking about the exposure, Brett, of like people seeing these cars, like I couldn't, my dad wasn't going to drive me around in a Barracuda, but I could have one that I could play with and look at, and the stats were on the box. So you learn all about these cars and stuff that were so exotic. And yeah, the buy-in is $1. So even kids who didn't have a lot of money to spend, they're at the grocery store, they see it on the spinner peg rack or whatever, they could get in for that $1. And like you said, the exposure of like, a badass Barracuda and a 75 LED2 Corvette that you would never see in your garage, you were still playing with in your bedroom.
I also think, at least for me, it's the first toy where the aesthetic actually mattered. I didn't just care how it would function as a plaything. Like, actually just having it and looking at it, even as a little kid, mattered. No other toy that was the case, but for Hot Wheels it was.
Yeah, the deco and the wheels and everything, it all mattered to Hot Wheels. And I think, too, with a lot of the toys, you see a lot of the pre-war stuff kind of come down in value because a lot of that generation is gone.
Yep.
You see a little bit of that with the 60s stuff, but not so much with the red lines. The red lines are going up and up because of that. There's a new collector every day at Walmart or Target or Toy Shack or one of us that's starting to buy a car for $1.
Wow.
And that's where it starts. You
Well,
know,
we always talk about how the properties that continue to reinvent themselves and put them in front of the new generation, right? Star Wars has been, I think, probably on the licensing side, probably the most prolific of
Up
that.
at the times.
Right?
but that's
And
changed
they've-
too because of the prices of the Star Wars stuff still
Of
going
course,
up.
yeah.
Whereas the Hot Wheels hasn't changed
Yeah.
much even from the 60s,
That's
which is
awesome.
incredible. Like, you know, since they came out in 68, you know, those cars were like maybe 60 cents, 68 cents. And then went up like 20, 30 cents.
Yeah, you know, you didn't see the inflation in that for sure by any means. I also think that when you talk about this specific like group of Hot Wheels, because in every toy line, there's some type of version, right? There's, you know, whatever it is, when you get into it, you know, you start talking about specific time periods, there's a reference point to that time period, right? So in this line, when you say red lines, just red lines, everybody immediately knows that that is a vintage Hot Wheel.
Yeah.
As soon as it's said, the most casual of people will know that. I don't know another toy line that stands out like that. There's not something that I can sit there and say a specific, and Star Wars might be the closest when I say Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi. But even at that, I don't think it's nearly the same comparison as I would say you would have with when I say red lines for a toy.
Yeah, it does in the world, in the hobby. And I think, too, what set that on the map, I remember collecting in the late 90s, and me and my buddy, and then when it hit the news that rear loader beach bomb, you know, when I think it was like 75, 80 grand when they first purchased that, and that kind of raised the eyebrow in the toy collectible world, because there is snobby people. That's more like in the East Coast. You kind of see that when you go to those spots, and they're kind of like, oh, you collect like modern, and
pretentious.
Modern to them is like 60s and newer, you know. But anyways, when that happened, it kind of raised eyebrows in the toy world, like, oh wow, the Hot Wheel could actually be, you know, be that valuable, and that kind of changed the whole industry. And I remember driving as a kid not as a kid, but I was a little bit older, and we went to the Peterson Auto Museum, and we went and go see the Reloader Beach Bomb, and then that was kind of like full circle when I was able to appraise that on Pawn Stars. Was like, dude, like put on the white gloves, and like that was that was that moment where I was like, wow, this is incredible. But you know, and then too, like as you said, Hot Wheels, I don't know what it is, and I think part of that is why that stuff comes to me. And when I was in Mexico, and I've been carrying this around with me since I got back from Querétaro, it's in my pocket. And this was the rare Sipsa pit crew that I picked up in Mexico. But there's probably less than 5 of these out there in the world.
Yeah, and this car, I mean, the condition's really cool, and Johnny does have it in studio here. He's channeling my inner 9-year-old, and carrying this around in his pocket for like 3 weeks now, like a good luck charm or something. But he's carrying it around, and he's got it. It's in very, very good shape. It is the first time that I have seen one in person. I know that there's been a couple of times where they've been out on exhibition and, you know, a part of some of the other stuff. But I didn't attend those events, so I didn't get to see it. The cool thing is I do have one of the great white elephants that in the Hot Wheels world, and a good story for me was, so in 2006, I sold my personal collections of stuff, and I had about 350 red lines at the time. And at that time, I sold them to 2 different dealers in California, right? And I had a pearl white Camaro, which is one of the grail cars for most redline collectors in the world, and it was like an 8 in condition. And when I sold that car, it was like an $8,000 car. And now that car is like
the enamel 67?
the enamel 67 Camaro. And when I sold that, like I said, it was about an $8,000 car. And like, if you had it in that condition right now, you'd probably get somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000 for that car. Like, it's crazy to think what some of those grailish cars and what you've talked about, the increase, the eyes in the hobby. It also too, although Hot Wheels collectors are crazy and they buy everything, and when I say everything, they buy 50 of the same car. They do also in turn take up less space. So guys can collect a lot more of them.
And it's funny because even when Johnny was mentioning how it's in his pocket, I was thinking of kind of how we were discussing how it's the toy that really it's a pivotal toy because it gives you so much exposure to just automobiles in general, and it's also one of the first toys you had that literally works everywhere, like doctor's waiting room, family function you're bored as hell at, right? Anything. Like being babysat by someone like you don't want there when your parents are out when you're a little kid. Like, you could be in any room, any setting, and a Hot Wheel will work for you.
Yeah.
Like,
I
it will
could get
pass
my
the time.
parents. I could get my parents to turn around.
Yeah.
Right? I could get my parents to turn around, and no matter what environment I was in, I could always get them to buy me a Hot Wheel.
Right.
No matter what, I could always pull off the get me to buy a Hot Wheel.
100%.
And, we talk about that, too, because, Brendan, I know, so you've got the baseballs behind you, the autographed baseball wall. That's kind of like your Hot Wheels case, because the baseballs don't take up a ton of space, right?
Yeah, no, we talked about this before. I have a Yastrzemski jersey on this wall over here. It takes up the whole wall. And so what I started doing, going to games and going to spring training and stuff like that, is just picking up signed balls, because I can hold 100 balls in this case right here, but I can only hold one jersey in the same space. So balls are my Hot Wheels, yeah.
And Paul, you had something to interject there?
Not really. I was just very happy to hear that Brendan and his love of balls. Once again, happy Pride Month, everyone.
So, talking about red lines and how prominent that is, another toy line that I think of, you can reference it, and it's because things changed. And since it started in the 60s, I think this is a great conversation to bring in, is a real American hero. When I say that, you instantly think G.I. Joe. You know that's G.I. Joe, but that was the new G.I. Joe in the 80s, because previously G.I. Joe was more real life military soldier.
Yes.
And then he became a lot more fantasy, a lot more,
action, adventure.
There's vehicles in a Real American Hero line that could not function, right? They're like the X-19 is a really good example of the wings of a plane going the wrong direction, right? But it still functioned in the show, but it didn't necessarily, it wouldn't have real world purpose.
Yeah.
But it is one of those toy lines that when I say aura or a Real American Hero, immediately people in the toy space know you're talking about 3 3/4 inch G.I. Joe figures and all those vehicles.
To me, that was such the best line as far as scale, and then just the amount of vehicles and accessories that came out in that line. To me, and I didn't play as much with it as a kid. I didn't get a lot of those, but I remember I had a kid that lived in the same block as me. His name was Jeremy.
That's exactly how I was. That was my introduction.
He had every single G.I. Joe. He had every single vehicle, and we did the tunnels and we played the battles, and it was amazing. But that line, as far as to scale, and then as far as a kid to play with, it was just the best of all the toy lines of the 80s.
True. Those G.I. Joe, and even going a little bit later, and then Nintendo 64 were two things that I technically never owned, but I played so often, multiple times throughout the week. I always kind of think I did own, subconsciously I have to remind myself, I never owned them. I would go over to neighbors and friends' house and play them so often.
No, there was a kid on my block who used to always invite me over for sleepovers.
Yeah.
But just so I'd bring my Nintendo 64 over. He didn't even like me, but he wanted to play my games all night long. So as long as I was bringing the Nintendo 64, I was invited.
And it wasn't because I had other consoles. It was more so I never asked for it, because I'm all I could just go to my buddy's house and play it all day long.
Yeah.
I'll just do that.
And as you guys are talking and as you guys are saying this, I realize I'm Jeremy. Right? Yeah. So I realize I'm
had
Jeremy.
to come to your house.
But
right.
because
I know.
I was a little hustler as a kid.
I love it.
Right? So I would always go out and I would do that, and then
where
we
to
hit
come.
yard sales.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. And I would always load up on yard sales. I remember this one particular yard sale, I got 90% of my Star Wars collection from, because it was everything, all the vehicles, multiple of everything, all this stuff. And I remember it was $50, and I remember it was pulling hair with my mom to get her to give me $50 so I could buy this, but she did, and I had everything. But I immediately became the guy in the area that had all the Star Wars toys.
That's awesome.
Whatever. So you see that happen. And now from Aura, right, because right now in the world of G.I. Joe Classifieds and the G.I. Joe line that they're putting out and the stuff they're doing, all of the reference material is going back to Aura. Everything is about Aura. Not even the newer property G.I. Joe stuff is really being revisited as often. But one of the lines that I think is kind of underappreciated was Ninja Force. Do you remember that, Johnny?
Yeah.
And the Ninja Force had some really, really great characters. And look, we talked about it where I've knocked, IDW and this G.I. Joe comic line that they did where it's all the silent books, right? And they're doing it for characters that shouldn't be silent. But the ninjas should be silent. I feel like that was their intention to go. I think they deviated off a little bit. But now they made an announcement. Brendan, tell us about Yo-Joe June and what they're doing?
Well, they've been doing this for a while, so like this is the annual event that they're doing. And going back to what we were talking about with Marvel not showing up at San Diego Comic-Con, Hasbro has just figured they can just do this online every year, and people are going to tune into it. So they teased the first figure is Budo, and they showed all the different hands and the different weapons and things for it. I have an image for that I sent over to Aaron. He can pop it up anytime now. But they're going to do a Yo-Joe June fan stream on June 4th at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, and it's going to have reveals, deep dives, and drops that they're going to be doing for the whole rest of this line, the classifieds. And so it's a really smart thing that they did is they teased it, they put it out on all those socials, and then they're doing a YouTube live stream to bring in all the fans, to show them all the new stuff that's coming up. This is the style of the figures. You can see they've got alternate armor and weapons and different things going on there. It's a cool style that they're doing. And it looks like they're going to be doing this with a bunch of the other ninja characters and stuff too. So this is kind of the format that they're doing. Instead of paying a bunch of money for travel and presentation and panel time and things like that at San Diego or the other big Comic-Cons, they're just doing their own thing on YouTube.
Well, and I know that Hasbro started the Hasbro Con, right, during COVID. Right, because that was missed, so they wanted to do that. So that started that way, and then fans really took to it because they would give like a dedicated hour to releasing this. Over the hour, they would show it. But where Hasbro hit the home run, different than some of the other places, is that as they made the announcements in the live stream, they launched it on Hasbro Pulse, which is their subscription site, that you could have early ability to purchase these figures or whatever it was. And then they would do exclusives that were only available through there, and they did that. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see that happen, because that's a great blueprint for them. And two, as much as I hate to see it, you see these companies like Hasbro that come up with those exclusive SKUs that they sell directly from themselves. Like, we can't acquire them to, for a wholesale to sell them at retail. They do it themselves, and that does create, really good collectability for it and everything. I'm thinking, when I think of the Ninja Force, though, do you think that people now are going to take on those really cool, early 2000 bright color, figure? Are they going to buy into that? Do you think that's what we're going to get revealed in this? What do you think they're going to actually come up with here?
I hope they don't do that. That's the only thing that was a little annoying when the Joe went towards the 90s and they went all these crazy neon greens, purples, oranges, and hopefully they can just dim it down a little bit, and then that just don't do the neon.
Too vibrant.
Well, and I'll tell you, so Budo generally, if I'm and I may be incorrect, I'm racking my brain from my childhood. I believe that his chest was primarily like a teal blue almost, right?
Yeah.
It was very, very vibrant like that. So to see what the actual product image was here, it's a little more realistic, and I think that's where the collector is right now, that they want the accessories and how they look to be a little bit more realistic.
Yeah.
And again, we don't know if it's just going to be ninjas here. For all we know, they could bring us Sergeant Slaughter's Marauders here. Yeah. Or they could bring, there could be, because some of those had also alternative colors and those things, which those are always great pieces in the toy world, where they can take a casting of a figure and go and make the other version, and they don't need to change the head, and they don't have to change the boots, and they don't have to change the hands, but they do have to change the outfit color or something like that. That seems and has a tendency to work really well. But something this conversation sparked with me, and Johnny, you brought this up, and this was a really good point. When we were kids and you went to the toy department, and Aaron, I almost bet you'll be able to find an image of this if you just go look up G.I. Joe in the toy store in the 80s. It wasn't about the action figure. It was about the vehicle and the playset. And it was massive displays where when I went into the toy store, look, in 1985, when you walked into the toy store, and I'm going to specifically call it Toys R Us because this is a vivid memory that I have. And sometimes in my childhood, I don't remember all the little intricate things, but I remember this, right?
Yeah.
And I remember walking in to Toys R Us, and there were 2 spots on the shelf for the USS Flag, which is the aircraft carrier, right? In the middle of the aisle, there was a big display, and that big display was the Night Force vehicles that were exclusive to Toys R Us, right? And then you'd go down the aisle, and as you would build down the aisle, you would have coming up into where the figure sets were. The figures would be over top of these big boxes, and then right beside it, you had all these vehicle options. And at that time, you had Tiger Force come out. You had different versions of G.I. Joes that had come out. Some of the older vehicles were still on the shelf. Some of the newer vehicles were on the shelf. Because you got to think, G.I. Joe came out in 82, and by 84, G.I. Joe had a massive array of G.I. Joe vehicles that were offered.
Yeah, all the planes, everything it was a sick line. But I never, fortunately, we were Mexican, so we didn't get a lot. We didn't get none of that, and we were 4 boys, so we didn't even look at that. Just torturing ourselves.
It's like if only, right?
Yeah.
It's like maybe down the road, but we're not gonna enamor ourselves.
Me and my
that.
brother's oh no, let's go over here. Maybe we'll get a Hot Wheel. But if it wasn't Christmas or a birthday, it wasn't happening.
It's a great memory though, because it's so funny. Star Wars and G.I. Joe are two that really almost you don't even think of as a toy aisle or an action figure aisle. It's their aisle. For at least for a while, that's how it felt, and that's what was so cool about it, because you felt like you were perusing through a certain, not maybe not a genre, but a certain brand. So you didn't have to necessarily think, oh, I hope I get Star Wars, I hope I get G.I. Joe. It's like, which one am I going to pick if I get the chance to get one?
Well, you can only imagine, though, in the 80s, there were so many great cartoons. There's so many great toy lines. Like Silverhawks, Thundercats.
Right.
There's
every show that you watched on TV was an advertisement.
He-Man, Masters of the Universe, everything.
It was just unreal. But, and even going back now, I know certain things I would grab because we would know what to grab for the value wise, but dude, it even now
you would have camped out at Sears if you went back now.
Oh yeah,
That's
for
the
any
only
of those.
place we would have sat for G.I. Joe is Sears or Toys R Us.
Yeah, go to that catalog and order all that stuff. That would have been the hit.
Because there's crazy vehicles and lines from Sears that were Sears exclusives where they recolored vehicles. And they were only available through Sears. And then on top of it, they weren't carried in most of the stores. They were only catalog only.
Yeah.
So it was like pulling teeth to get your parents to order from the catalog for you. And, again, this is a nostalgic run. And I love that Hasbro is doing this. Now, Brendan, on your research into this, did you really come across any information on the G.I. Joe line that kind of stood out to you that you're like, I didn't know that, or something that was kind of surprising to you from this?
No, not necessarily. I'm used to the little 3.25 inch. So when they're doing these bigger ones, they don't really hit the same for me. I do like the collectability and the displayability and the posability with all the different articulations and stuff. But I'm really used to the, shoulders, elbows, and I think the wrist turned on the original ones. And to me, this is a great figure, but this doesn't really scream G.I. Joe because nostalgically, I'm looking for the little guy that I used to stick inside my remote control car and jump off of curbs and stuff.
So it wasn't the wrist that twisted. It was actually the bicep. The bicep twisted.
Oh, yeah.
And then that was after the straight arms of the original, what was it, first 10, 12? First 12, I think, were straight arms. 10. First 10. So I'm thinking 12 is Star Wars. Tell you.
So I understand why they're making these as collector's items and things like that. But as far as the nostalgia thing for me, this is not something I would run out and buy. Budo's not a character that I would run out and be like, oh, I got to have every Budo they've ever made. And for this size or whatever, it just doesn't hit for me. But I can see where, as a collector, you might want something like this in your collection for display or something because it would display well.
Well, yeah, and I think on the 6-inch scaling, I think that's become the accepted hobbyist thing, and really that started with Hasbro with Marvel Legends, right?
Yeah.
And so with Marvel Legends, because Marvel Legends was another one that I think you could identify the line based on the Build-A-Figure that came with it, right? That was another one I was going to say that kind of triggered my mind. Mm-hmm. That if I say Fing Fang Foom to Johnny, he instantly goes, that's a really rare Marvel Legends line. I want all those figures.
Yeah.
Right? Give me Doc Samson. Give me give me Scar. Give me, because it was a Hulk line that Fing Fang Foom was in, because that's the way they would do the Marvel Legends line. The one thing I will knock Hasbro for here is I don't think that they've really listened to the collector on the G.I. Joe stuff enough. And the reason I say that is because there would be way more vehicles out. right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what they're starting to do now, which interests me a lot, kind of pulls me in, is a lot of the guys are 3D printing the vehicles to match that line. Like I seen a guy recently with a Night Raven that was probably like 3 feet, 4 feet, oh, maybe more than that. Maybe like 4 feet
It
long.
would have to be pretty big.
Yeah, to fit that figure. And it just, to me, that alone was like, oh, damn, now I need that, you know, in my life. And you know, that kind of draws me into the whole line that because you need the vehicles to match those, but they're just so enormous, you know, and I hoping down the road that they'll dabble in that a little bit, because you know, that would really help the line to start adding the vehicles to that.
No, and I agree. And as you're saying that, I'm reading some of the show notes that were from Brendan on this, because again, Brendan does a lot of our research on the show, and I think we should give him the credit for what, you know, he does. He noted that while not announced by Hasbro, expect to see renders of Wetsuit, Flash, Cobra Night Viper released as well. And as soon as I see Wetsuit, I immediately think Devilfish. Like 100%. And that's the little orange boat. And I had like 20 of them as a kid. I literally did. Because every time I'd go to the store, it was like $4 to buy that boat. And so I'd buy another one and enough figures to load that up. And now I had 2. And then I had 3. You know, constantly. Wow. In fact, I think my Cobra guys had Devilfish just because, you know, I was like, oh, I'll put these guys. They stole a Devilfish, like whatever it is. So again, this is a nostalgic callback. This is definitely a fun thing. I do like that Hasbro is embracing the hobby community by introducing these. And I only think, and Brendan, you could probably, you know, shed some light on this too. I think personally that if more manufacturers in the toy world got into these type of like fanfare arrangements to where they're bringing the personalities of their space in front of people, the designers, the people that are involved, I think that really could bode well for any of these companies moving forward. Have you seen that with anyone else really that's kind of doing something like that?
Well, it's funny because the direct market is going up. I mean, with the internet, it's kind of like a bunch of fandoms are really just starting to embrace it. And so, you know, with all the fanfare that goes into San Diego Comic-Con or New York Comic-Con or the big cons or whatever, within your own niche group, you know, they've built up this event over their socials, and now everybody's going to tune in. So they've got their target market just locked, and they're releasing them immediately as soon as they announce them. You can buy them right from the site. So now, you know, instead of, you know, manufacturer to distributor to, you know, toy store to consumer, you're cutting out 2 of those stages. So they get to either offer it at a lower price or to get more profit on it. It's direct shipped. There's a lot of benefits for the manufacturer, but there's also a lot of benefits for the consumer, because, you know, if you're buying it from Hasbro, you know it's real, you know it's authentic, you know that you know, whatever they promise on the website is exactly what you're going to get. There is a big benefit to this. And then, you know, secondary market, I don't know what that does for you guys later, but you know, I understand that like some of these figures you'd really like to have on your shelves today, but I can see where it benefits. Like I said, it benefits Hasbro, it benefits the consumer. You know, and I don't know where you guys fit into that, unless they're going to be doing different versions of these same ones that have different cards or different colors or whatever on it at some point down the line. But I think that, you know, it's good for the fandom, it's good for the consumer, and I think ultimately, you know, with all the stuff that's up in the air about tariffs and things like that, it could be better for, you know, moving some of these pieces right now instead of dealing with who pays what through the 6 stages before it gets in the consumer's hands.
You know, and when they do those type projects, and Hasbro is known for that, where there's all the unlocked tiers for different things they've done. And don't get me wrong, they've done some vehicles, right? They did some HISS tanks. They've done, you know, some other stuff that are scaled at the 6-inch scale. It's just, it's hard for them to do massive ton of these because they take up so much space. The toy store's changed, right? Like Lego inhabits 2 aisles.
Yeah.
And it takes up a ton of space. And then they try to strip everything down into, you know, 6-peg planograms and next toy item and next type item and next type item, because they can't figure out what is going to draw the interest of these kids back.
Right.
Right. So they're trying to figure out what that is. I don't know. I mean, again, I think that this is done well. I think as keeping it as an adult collectible is kind of cool. I do wish that there were the supporting properties and ways for kids. Like, I was thinking about it, and actually I think this is a Paul Vato thing. Remember Create a Cobra? And you could create your own Cobra, right? So in '93 they had like a special Cobra soldier, right, that came out, and ultimately you could like name this character, and you would create all of his specs and all of the stuff, and you would mail in for it and you would send in for it. And it made me think, like, one, I wonder what Paul Vato would have made his G.I. Joe figure. But two, I want to know, why isn't that a concept that they revisit? Where it's like, hey, go out and clip the 6 proof of purchases from these boxes, mail it in along with this little card that's hanging on the shelf, and your money to be able to get this figure back. Like, that as a kid, I remember like running and pulling the little thing off the shelf, and or getting or it would come with another figure that you would get that little inserted piece of paperwork that would tell you, like, get the Steel Brigade, right?
Yeah.
And then you would fill that out and you would send it in, and then 6 weeks later, 10 weeks later, you would get a figure that would show up to your house, and then it would have all the specs, everything you named. But Paul, what figure would you create if you could create your own G.I. Joe?
I feel like that's more of an Aaron question, so he can use his AI to come up with a Paul Votto with the Kung Fu grip or something. Just because I did study Taekwondo, I know that's not Kung Fu, but I think my doll would have done something like that. I wrestled. I was a wrestler. You can't tell, now by the way my body's gone, but yeah. Now, what I don't appreciate you guys doing is throwing your wealth in my face, talking about G.I. Joe and whatnot, because I think we were a Temu family before Temu was a thing, because I'd be like, oh, Mom, can we get this G.I. Joe doll? At the risk of exposing my real age. And she'd be like, no, mijo, you got G.I. Joe at home. And we're like, we don't have G.I. Joe at home. You bought us Big Jim and the Wtfif. So, yeah, I don't really appreciate you wealthy guys going like, oh, yeah, we had G.I. Joe, we had this, because we didn't have that. But I clearly remember that Big Jim and the Wtfif had on the bottom of his shoe like a paw print that you could use to fake out the other, as you're walking in sand, it looked like there were animal prints. That's all kind of what I remember of Big Jim and the Wtfif. So if you ever come across any of those toys, I would like to, maybe pick some up just because of the memories. But no. Wasn't G.I. Joe that had the Kung Fu grip?
Yes.
Or am I making that up?
Yeah, that's straight out of a Sublime song.
As he mentioned the Kung Fu grip, immediately Paul just visited the fact that being a 90s kid, he got all the hand-me-downs, right?
Yeah.
He had to because based on that being in his childhood and him being a kid of the 90s, that means that he was staring at the shelf on Power Rangers but was getting in the Kung Fu grip G.I. Joe.
Yeah, I would have thought you'd get like the 90s swap meet multi-pack where it has like Buzz Lightyear and Spider-Man. And
Delayed gratification, for sure.
And some random Lucha Libre in there.
Yeah.
There's always some non-character Lucha Libre in one of those packages, no matter what it is.
Generic-
Power Rangers with a Lucha Libre.
Generic luchador.
Neil Mascaras without the M on it.
Literally El Generico.
That's
No,
so
being
fun.
an actual 90s kid, as soon as he said Kung Fu grip, I started thinking of Sublime lyrics and it started playing in my head.
That's good too.
And on that note, we're going to take a break. And when we come back,
Bradley
we're going to
Noel
visit the new
quotes.
comic books of the week. And if we have some time, we might just talk about catching them all. But this is Who the F*** is Frank here on Go Live Vegas.
Permit Patty's the worst. In print, on video, and everywhere in between, the show never stops on ComicCon.com.
Stop the gas! Feel the thrill! Chase the legend! Come on down to the thrill bar!
Go Live Vegas Studios, a unique multi-camera social media virtual content creators paradise. We offer high-end services using live streaming and film production for your personal or corporate, commercial or event and campaign needs. Pre-record or live stream to your audience on multiple social media platforms simultaneously. Fun and interactive with social media comments, phone lines, live remotes, audio Foley sounds, and Snapchat filters. Be creative, get recognized, and make money.
Well, back at it with Who the F*** is Frank here on Go Live Vegas, and where you get all of your content. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on TikTok. You can find us on Facebook Live. You can find us on the One of Us Comics YouTube channel as well. Each and every week, we have a new episode that comes up, unless we decide to take the week off or for some reason Brendan Allen just decides that he needs to not do an episode, we'll do that. Of course, everyone coming back from the break real quick. Apparently, every time we go to break, it's funny. Most people don't see the empty screen that occurs from Brendan. As soon as the commercial drops, he's gone. And we're in studio and see it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, and today
Reappears.
he came sprinting back. That was really funny.
You know what? That didn't feel like a full commercial break because I'm usually able to get up and go to the bathroom and then come back in time, but that felt like it was shorter.
Oh, it definitely was.
In his head, I think he was just kind of putting it that way. But, in reality, I want to make sure that, that he knows that, no, he just didn't get back in time. That's one of the accountability for him is when he has to be accountable. That's when it becomes tough because then he starts to go, but, and, if those words start getting used in the sentence, and then that's where. So
I can time it next time. I'm pretty quick at peeing.
Yeah,
I'm pretty good at it. I've been
we'll
doing it for 47 years.
Body clock.
For sure. We'll have to do that for sure. Now, we're going to be talking about some of the new comics coming up. We also have some information on some stuff coming up next week on the show, and we'll touch that right here at the end. But the new comics that are coming up this week, there's some interesting books, some titles that I think are just more impactful for the for the aesthetic of what is currently going on. We always see it like, look, we have Free Comic Book Day, we have Batman Day books, we have stuff like that. And this first book is actually being offered because of the month, right, Brendan?
Yes, sir. So DC and Marvel, they do these Pride comics. DC's anthology comes out this week. It's DC Pride 2025 #1. This is the 5th year they've been doing this one. Basically, they get a bunch of their creators together that belong to the LGBTQIA community, and they make a bunch of stories. So this one says, when a 100-year-old queer speakeasy turned bar, turned restaurant, and community space in Gotham announces that it'll soon be closing its doors, generations of patrons come to pay their respects, including Alan Scott, the Green Lantern. After all, this is a place where he and his first love, Johnny Ladd, long ago carved their names into the basement wall before it all went to hell. So they've got stories in this one featuring The Question, Midnighter and Apollo, Harley Quinn, Green Lantern Joe Mullion, Bunker, Connor Hawke, and Blue Snowman.
So whenever you have these, impactful on our, communities or whatever it is, I always think that these are important because sometimes they give voices in either a space or to characters that don't normally get it. Right. So I think that that's good. And then two, for reflect, like, look, I've been a big guy most of my life. I've been able to be like, hey, the Thing, Hulk, like whatever. So sometimes when you find reference material to a character that maybe like, means something to you or stands out. And I
think that's the norm. Like, I think we want to find a character that resonates with our background, our upbringing, or even if it's some type of hardship we have to overcome, because that's what is made. Really, that's what I think is what has always made Marvel stand out in particular, and that's why it's good for DC to do this as well. Because DC's kind of always had the aura that they're almost, they're the heroes in DC operate at a frequency at a level higher than the everyday Joe, than the common man. Where Marvel, it's more like they're on the ground with us. But for DC now to kind of break that gap down and say, yeah, they may be viewed as these like mythological gods almost. They also go through the same type of things we go through. That's always kind of been Marvel's MO, but I like the fact that DC characters can tap into that as well.
Well, my thing is I think it should be a new character versus make the characters like to make Superman, or Superman's son.
Right.
He's a homosexual. I mean, like I said, I support 100% the gay community.
But you don't want it contrived.
Yeah, I just don't want it to feel like it's a little forced or it's just thrown in there. You know what I mean? And I feel like, there should be gay superheroes, and they should stand alone on their own.
And I think a lot of times, I'm not trying to speak for that community. I think a lot of times that does come off as offensive. That's why someone like a Bobby Drake, Iceman and the X-Men is so pivotal, because that's deeply rooted as far as his character's canon. If you're just taking a long-established character and throwing him in that, the intentions may be well, but the execution isn't there.
Well, we've even had that, not even from this standpoint, but we've had it where, Thor became a female because we wanted to, make sure that we celebrated the women's voice, whatever it is, and you have that, and then it does happen, unfortunately, where you do have pushback in the community.
The Green Lantern, though, Alan Scott is a new Lantern, right? That's not like taking a character that existed or making it a legacy character. That's another person taking up the ring. That seems like it makes sense to me in the universe that of all the Green Lanterns that get chosen, eventually there would be a gay one, right? I mean,
right. But if you
talk
talk
about Hal Jordan or something,
if you talk about the Lanterns, you mentioned Harley Quinn. And to me, I sit there and go, no, Harley Quinn's love interest is the Joker. It always has been.
Yeah. But,
didn't they do a story with Harley and Poison Ivy, though?
Well, in the cartoon, that's what they go off of. In the new show that came out, that's on Max, that came out a few years ago. I don't know if it's rooted in the comics, but they actually, or at least currently, are running with that. I don't know if it's considered canon, quote unquote. But
yeah, I think it's the new iteration of Harley Quinn, like
right.
Yeah.
But they have approached that. Yes,
correct.
Yeah.
So this next book, I'm pretty interested in this, but that's because I actually read a lot of the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff when I was a kid. Like, I got into it for some reason. I don't know why. I always loved Star-Lord. I thought he was great. And this next book, Imperial #1, and right there on the cover, Nova's helmet.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice. All right. So this one's they're soliciting groundbreaking developments for the Hulks, the Black Panthers, the Novas, the Guardians, the Cosmic Kings and Queens. So they're bringing in a bunch of the Marvel like factions with this one. Jonathan Hickman, Federico Vicentini, and Ivan Coelho are working on this one. It says a sweeping Marvel cosmic event. Imperial is a story of intrigue, mysteries, and war, which takes place against the backdrop of the formation of a new galactic order in the Marvel universe. It features, like I said, the Hulks, the Black Panthers, the Novas, the Guardians, and Cosmic Kings and Queens. And they're saying this is the must-read book of the summer. We've never heard that before from Marvel, have we, boys?
I think they feel like every week when they put out 7 #1s that you should be must-reading all of these books. I like this, but only because I'm really big on the Nova story arc.
Yes, me too.
Right? And the Nova Corps, and I don't think that and look, when we go into the MCU and the live action stuff, I don't think they gave the Nova Corps nearly the amount of love that they should have gotten. The Nova Corps have a much bigger footprint than they really do.
I mean, Richard Rider is massively big, and we haven't even gotten much of an allusion to him, and that's why I like it, because I'm almost at the point where even if we don't really dive into the more cosmic elements, we did it with Guardians, right, the Infinity Stones. If we don't go even deeper with the cosmic stuff in the MCU, I'm fine, but as long as outside of that we get as much cosmic like references or storylines as possible, I'm all for. So that's why I'm excited about something like this, because if you can't give it to me on the big screen, give it to me elsewhere.
What do you think, Johnny?
No, I agree. I love those storylines, and I think hopefully this gives us a little more of that.
Now, what's next?
Cool. Well, there's a variant for this one. It's a 1 in 100, and it's made by, I don't want to butcher this person's name, but it's Adi Granov, and it's the Virgin variant. And I just thought this was a really cool depiction of Hulk.
Oh, wow.
I mean, whenever you get World War Hulk,
that's so stoic.
That is cool.
I love that.
With the crested
There's
helmet.
a reason why this one's 1 of 100 in incentive, right?
Yeah, I mean, that makes a ton of sense. You know, and it's funny. Sometimes they pick great covers for these incentives, and other times they bomb it. And I feel like lately on the incentives, they've been doing a much better job on a regular basis of hitting some of these more rare book versions and covers that like really do, the art really does the justice to the rarity of the book. And this to me, it looks like a 1 in 100 variant. This looks like it should be a rare variant cover. So I think, well done, Marvel. I think that's great. And Marvel Knights is the next one, right? The World to Come.
Right, Marvel Knights, World to Come #1.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So now I know what a Virgin cover is, which is great. And it's 1 out of 100. Does that mean that they're only making 1 out of 100? And how can people get these variants? So could you explain that just a little bit?
So retailers, they put in their orders, and if there's variants that are 1 of 100 or 1 out of 25, they have to order in blocks of 100 to get one of those covers. So a lot of times what will happen is the retailer will take all the pre-orders and what they expect to sell. They'll get that 1 of 100 and they'll mark it up. So instead of the $3.99 for the sticker price, it'll be a $10 cover or $15 cover depending. So the 1 in 25 usually goes up double, triple, but that 1 of 100, I'd be surprised if that didn't sell for 4 or 5 times what the sticker price is.
Yeah, and I would say in general that it's probably pretty fair to say a 1 in 100 will start at about $50.
Yeah,
and we'll kind of go up from there depending on what it is.
Oh, amazing! No, thank you. Yeah, because it just seems like it's so rare, and obviously you have to, it incentivizes the retailer to order more. But if they want to get them, that's the cost. That's the cost.
Well, they've started to do it too, where you have to order a certain number of a certain cover to be able to get some of certain incentives, right? So it's not even like, because they might have 9 different variant covers that you can order, and your total of those 9 different, could be 100 to get the 1 in 100. But now they've started to get like you have to order 100 of the A cover or whatever it is to be able to get to that incentive spot. Does make it a little more challenging on a smaller retailer. Just means sometimes you don't get to carry them unless you want to sit on 100 of, the A cover. The world to come. Tell us about this, Brendan.
Okay, so this is a 6-issue mini. It imagines the mainstream Marvel universe through the lens of Marvel Knights, which is from the late 90s. But basically, it's a little bit grittier, a little bit darker. This one says the King of Wakanda is dead, leaving unguarded the world's most advanced technology, most precious metal, and a cryptic vault of dark secrets while triggering global conflicts among Marvel's heroes, villains, and mutants. With T'Challa gone, the future of Marvel 616 universe will be determined by a final tribal challenge for the Wakandan throne and a mysterious victor who will change Wakanda and the Marvel universe forever.
Again, it's a mini series.
It's Priest working on this one too. Sorry, so it's Joe Quesada and Christopher Priest are working on this, writing it together, and those are 2 big names in comics. So if nothing else, the creative team on this one sells it.
Yeah, and I think it'll probably be written well. And generally, these Knights are. The fact that it's a 6-book miniseries, these are cool. But I hate when they do the miniseries that's not part of like an ongoing.
Right.
Because it leaves you kind of wanting more, and as you get started on it, all of a sudden it's gone.
And it can be disjointed at times, depending on what like the greater picture or the greater story being told.
And what they try to do is they pull those into the ongoings and give them like 1 or 2 issues, interjected with it to like create it as a bigger thing. But I actually would like to see it as more of like, hey, it's an ongoing that there's this mini series that comes off of that ongoing.
Right.
So maybe this could have been like off of Ultimate Black Panther and then, could have been something like that or whatever. But again, that's just my personal take.
No, and I get that because even on the films, that's like the big kind of in the last few years where they expanded so much on based on the other side of Endgame. It's kind of runs parallel with that because now everything that comes out in movie form, everything that comes out on Disney Plus, you have to wonder: does it connect to this? Does it connect to that? Is it an isolated story? Is it interconnected to the greater picture, the next big crossover event? And just me in particular, as far as me being a fan, I love this because anything Marvel Knights, everyone, especially given that fact, as Brendan said, late 90s, early noughts, that edgy, brooding, dark, melancholy type of, era that every comic fan goes through. You kind of go through your edgelord phase. I went through it as well. There was a stretch where every time I walked into a comic book store, I'm going straight to the Marvel Knights. Even so, I try to paint the connection, like when they did the Netflix series with the Defenders, you could tell that was kind of inspired by the Knights, despite it not being the exact same lineup. There's rumors about them doing a Midnight Suns team that may take certain elements from the Marvel Knights. Like, there's a huge audience there, and like Brendan said, if anything, it'll probably be well written. So there's just a certain element of the canon that I think they could tap into here that you're always gonna have that diehard demographic with.
And it's funny, I bring up that whole concept right there, right? Where I bring up the fact that like they could take it ongoing and do it. And then this next book actually brings it up, and that's going to be Ultimate Spider-Man. And this is going to be Incursion #1. Ooh. So they're taking Ultimate Spider-Man and then bringing a sub-series to it, right, Brendan?
Yeah, so writing this one are Denise Camp, Cody Ziegler, and Jonas Scharf is drawing it. So again, a great team on this one. They're plugging the first appearance of an all-new Peter Parker. So before the Maker remade Earth 6160, he left Miles Morales the key to reach his new universe. And when Miles' baby sister Billy uses it to travel to the Ultimate Universe, it's up to Spider-Man to save her. But the Ultimate Universe is never safe for any Spider-Man. When the Spot attacks, Miles will have to team up with an all-new Peter Parker, and that's just the start of his journey across Earth 6160.
And the fact that the Spot is being brought into this, I think, is cool because the Spot is one of those villains that really doesn't get that villain heritage from the Spider-Man like line, but was one of the biggest antagonists with Spider-Man and was, at least from an intellectual side, was the one where like Peter Parker had to like figure out how to beat that guy a little bit more. Mm-hmm. So I like that. Johnny, I know you like Spider-Man, and then we look at this cover and you see, Avengers and X-Men, and I mean, old Spider-Man, new Spider-Man, Black Panther, like almost all the Ultimate lines are tied in on this cover.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a great cover. It says a lot about the book. I'm sure it's going to be a hit.
And the Spider-Man stuff is really, really big, so I don't see this not being a hit.
And it's like what you said. I love the fact that Spider-Man is so expansive now, and they could do so much with him or his variants that you could really incorporate the entire Rogues Gallery. Like you could use everybody at this point, and it's not like overly forced. It's smooth. It's natural.
Yeah, and definitely being able to use some of those characters. And then there's a variant cover to this, and this is another 1 in 100. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a 1 in 100. This is a Kari Andrews Virgin variant, and I love this one because it just shows like you've got the Spider-Man mask in the back that kind of looks like a web, and you got Miles Morales in the front. And I really love it when on a current Spider-Man story they put Miles up in the front and they have the other characters backing him up because Miles is Spider-Man right now. So kind of bugs me every time they're like Miles Morales Spider-Man because he just is the main title. But
yeah, it goes
I love
without
this cover
saying.
so much.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Paul. You want to know who Miles Morales is? Is that the question?
Yeah, because it's a Latino last name. I'm like, who's this Latino named Miles? No, it was more of a business question again, which is, and again, I'm just being nosy. Being a businessman, I kind of like to know this information. So you are allowed to buy one for every 100 that you order. Is your cost on this particular comic, the Virgin comic, this variant, is it the same as the other comics, or do they charge you more because it's a special variant, and then that allows you to sell it for $50 as opposed to $4 or $5?
So,
and if you can answer that, great. If not, I also understand it's business. But
no. So generally, Johnny, right? You order the number of books, and then if it is upcharged, it might just be a fraction, right?
Usually it isn't, though. Usually it isn't. Usually, like for example, like a $5 book, we're paying like usually half or maybe a little bit over half wholesale, and then you're buying 100 books, but then when that 100 books you have the option to buy 4 of the 25 and then 2 of the 50 and then 1 of the 100, but then on that 100 books you're basically 300 and let's say $350 in that order. But the risk with that is if the book flops, now you're stuck with 80 to 100 books just to get the incentive.
I think one I pointed out in the store the other day was a line they did called Absolute Power, right? And it was like, and this was a little before like the guard of like completely you and I coming in and like taking over the new book ordering, with the shop and kind of paying attention to it. And the guys had ordered for all the incentives. And the incentives are still sitting in the stores, right? Because the line bombed and just didn't do well. So you're forecasting that it's going to do well, and you're going to be able to sell those books to make up for what those were. And then you didn't. And then on top of it, those books are sitting in Exodus, because they didn't sell well on the shelf.
Or sitting in somebody's pull box too, because you were plugging it, and people don't ever come to pick it up. The retailers at the level of your local comic shop get screwed a lot on orders, and this is one of the ways that they get them to over order, so they get the variants. But then, okay, so you get $100 for the variant cover, the 1 of 100, but you're sitting on 20 extra copies that you ordered the A cover that you're never going to sell, and so it washes out. But they got the extra orders, and you're not going to get a refund. It's just they make you order. FOC is 4 to 6 weeks ahead of when the book is going to come out, so you never know what kind of press they're going to do for it, how well it's being received in social media and stuff until you've already ordered it a month ago. And by the time you're looking at how many pulls you have for it and stuff like that, a lot of times the local comic shop ends up holding the bag because it's set up this way. It's one of the things that Diamond did that worked out really well for Diamond but didn't work out so well for the consumer or for the local shop.
Well, in reality, it didn't work out very well for Diamond because long term
it did for a few years.
It became their Achilles heel, right?
Because for how many years,
because they were chasing money that people didn't pay on these books that they grossly overordered and then couldn't afford to pay. And most of those people, again, those were COD customers, cash on delivery. And so they would order that and then not have the money when it got. And then pretty soon it would sit, not get paid for, get sent back. And now they're sitting with this over exodus of, overproduced books that unfortunately that has happened to them. And that was, I would pinpoint that is at least part of their issues. I can't say that was everything that did that, but it was definitely part of their issues.
And I think too, that's why when they did the blind bag concept for the comic book, recently, it kind of takes the risk a little bit off the shop owner, because now the customer wants to come in, and instead of them trying to buy that variant or trying to buy, now they're going to take the risk. They might buy 5, 10, 15 books to get that hit. You know what I mean? And yeah, they're gonna, at the end of it, they might get lucky. They might get that one they're looking for, or then they have those 10 to 15 books themselves that they opened and that maybe they hit, maybe they didn't.
It's like golden ticket in the chocolate bar syndrome.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and again, I mean, the blind bag concept, I like that as long as it has some rarity factors to it, and there was some really good rarity factors to it, and I think that that's important. It'll be interesting to see what these comic book producing, publishers do in the future when it comes to this concept, because I do think that there's room in the space for it. It has to make sense. And what they did with Battle Beast was done pretty well, because even like one of the more easier variants to get out of those blind bags still holds a little bit of value, and that's they reprinted the original first appearance from Invincible of Battle Beast. So his first appearance, that's another one of the covers that you can chase, and it's the same cover, but it's a foil cover instead of the original regular cover, because that book right now is probably like a $300 cover, right?
Yeah.
That book is like a $300 book. So to be able to get it and at least like have a version in your collection that can hold the place or whatever, I think that's cool. And right now they're reselling anywhere from $12 to $22 for that cover, and I think it'll go up over time, because again, we see that a lot of time in the reprints. So I do like that concept. Now, something that hasn't had a problem being ongoing and doing really well is the Absolute line from DC, and this next one, Absolute Superman. And what is this, number 8?
This is number 8, but it's a new story arc. I'm always intimidated when I go for any Superman title, Spider-Man title. There are thousands of them, so I always appreciate when people let me know that a story arc is coming out. So this one pops off a new story arc. It says Superman finds himself caught between the opposing forces of the nefarious Lazarus Corp and the mysterious Omega Men. But Kal-El just wants to be left alone in the only place on this planet where he's ever felt safe, a little place called Smallville.
And bringing Smallville in, I think, look, that's going to hit a whole nother crowd. That hits a whole nother demographic of people, because there's a Superman that exists to people that started as the Smallville Superman, not, our Christopher Reeve Superman, or even going back further, right? Because that's the Superman that started most of us.
And there's some people who have even picked Superman back up since the run of Smallville.
Right. So to tie that in, I think is cool. Again, they're doing a great job with this Absolute line. Like, that is for sure a thing. Whatever story arcs that they're doing, how they're presenting it, how they're bringing the characters in, they keep hitting home run after home run.
Yeah, every line that they've done with the Absolute has just been a home run for them. And I think, too, our customers, everybody just keeps coming in every day trying to see what's left, from whatever we order.
And then if it's looking at Superman specifically, obviously he's trendy right now. How much of a rub do you think that'll ultimately have when it comes to the 2025 picture as a whole?
Well, yeah, that, and I think that storyline too. For me, I'm more excited about the Batman side of that, because that to me is like, that story to me hits, and I'm hoping they do something down the road with that.
Right.
Yeah, and they've done great covers too, right, Brendan? I think you were just about to mention it, but they've done great covers. This
we had said
variant is
earlier
sick.
that it might not be the A cover, the B cover, whatever. So this is a cover E, but it's the Virgin variant of cover E, and so it's a 1 of 50 Clayton Crane, and this one to me just embodies Superman so well. It's one of those things. I've heard Johnny say many times before that he has an image in his head of what a Superman cover should look like, and this really feels like it. And as soon as there it goes.
Well, again, we were on Aaron, the producer, time there with that cover, but great explanation of it. I'm glad that he could, give that dramatic pause for you, that you didn't need to actually give it. I know Paul appreciates that whenever Aaron delivers the dramatic pause, right? So, well done. I think this is a great cover, and again, I think you hit it on the head when you said it's a Clayton Crane cover, because Clayton Crane has started to become one of the iconic cover artists of at least this current time period. And when he gets involved with a project like this that's hot, I can only imagine how well this will do. This is going to be a big cover. This is going to be a book that people are going to want. And the fact that it's not an incentive means that it is going to be available out there for people. So I think that's great. Brett, you a big fan of this cover?
No, absolutely. Just because, again, it's the more different visuals you get of Superman, I think works only because the perception of him is that, like, it's almost like ad nauseum stereotype that probably isn't even that accurate of a stereotype anymore. Always squeaky clean cut, polished. And in certain aspects that works. And it's a big reason why Christopher Reeve's Superman is so, to this day, so iconic. But there's different things you can do, even if it's just off the aesthetic, that I think helps a lot because it shows that that character really isn't confined to what a lot of, I'm not going to say the quote-unquote haters, but the critics often, pigeonhole him as. So I'm all for it.
Now, Johnny, I know that you love covers like this, especially the negative space covers and anything like that really, grabs like that really bright color. And in the case with the cape here, like it really jumps out. Is this a cover that you see that this would probably be something that most people are going to get signed and slabbed?
No, definitely. This is something I'd pick up for my personal collection. I like the color. I love the suit. Like it says a lot with being so simple.
And that's the thing is that it is kind of simple, but at the same time, it's not. Right.
Yeah.
Which reminds me of being kind of simple, and that is Married with Children. No, it's a bad transition, but it's a good reason.
That's such a
And
weird segue.
the reason-
Now I'm
the reason I
thinking
wanted to
Al Bundy.
is because if you didn't know this, and I just want to point this out, if you can go back and watch the last 3 minutes, right, of this, like 3 or 4 minutes of this podcast, anytime Paul Vata has been on the screen, he's now going, is it my turn? Is it my turn? Is it my turn? Is it my turn? Like you're waiting and waiting and waiting. So, guys, we have an announcement we're going to make, but before we do that, Johnny's going to be making his way back to Mexico, guys, and he's going to be getting fast and furious out there.
Yeah, this June 8th we'll be back in Querétaro, Mexico. It's one of the most beautiful cities in Mexico. Absolutely, really safe for any Americans that want to go experience Mexico, see the old architecture. The malls there, it's like going to city center like the Cosmo.
Yeah.
It really is like upscale, and then the food, the culture, the people. It's a beautiful city. So we're gonna be back there June 8th. This huge car event. They're expecting about 15 to 20,000 people. Noel, my brother, him and I will be there. A bunch of other guests. We were driving in these cars, $100,000 cars, rolling around in Querétaro, Mexico, and it was unreal. And I was kind of tripping because I was asking the guys there. I go, dude, like nobody's gonna roll up at us. Like he's like, no, we're in Querétaro.
Yeah.
Like it's safe. Like if you get pulled over by the cops, you actually get a ticket. You don't just give the cop like $20-$40,
Right.
and then you go. It's like, no, that's how it is here. But yeah, we're really excited about this event. I'll probably bring a ton of stuff out there. If you got any more rare Hot Wheels or rare toys, feel free and come see me there. Come cash you out on some good stuff. So yeah, we're excited about this event. So we'll be out there.
Well,
for the weekend.
this poster kind of reminds me of Race Wars, right?
Yeah.
It kind of gives a little bit of that Race Wars feel, which I think is great for Fast and Furious. And Fast and Furious is building right now because the anniversary is coming up this next year.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah, no, it is. It's exciting. There's so much happening. And these cars here you're seeing, those aren't some picture they stole or whatever. They have all these cars there, and we're at the event we're going. They're probably going to be maybe 800 cars at this event. It's going to be pretty nuts.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And to think that all those are in one place. Now, also coming up on June 8th, we have a meet and greet we want to talk about, and that's with David Faustino, and this is where the Married with Children comes in, right?
Bud Bundy.
Bud Bundy is going to be making an appearance, and it looks like it's going to be...
I thought you said Bad Bunny was coming.
No. Although they do have the same
Maybe
haircut.
someday. Yeah.
They do have the same haircut. But, that is coming up. Paul, you're involved with this a little bit. Tell us more about this.
Well, yeah, I'm friends with David Faustino because of that comedy connection. He studied at the Groundlings with my ex. That's when I first met him, and it was a great introduction. He, I'm clearly much taller. Brendan didn't think so, but much taller than David. The first time he met me, he looked up at me. Then he looked at my ex, and he goes, "Oh, you like them big effers." So he and I kind of became fast friends. And he wanted to do the show today, but maybe he'll come in next week and talk about the meet and greet, which is happening on Sunday. So they debuted a Funko Pop doll. I'm sorry, is it a figure? I don't. What do I call it?
Designer vinyl.
Yeah. So he's got a Funko Pop doll. A Funko Pop that he'll be autographing and stuff like that. And it's at it's a organization Pocos Pero Locos. It's in East Los Angeles. So if you want to meet David Faustino, Bud Bundy, Grandmaster B, make your way to 4500 East Cesar Chavez Drive, where he'll be there on Sunday, and then hopefully Monday he can come on next Monday, or the show will be on Tuesday, that you can, and he'll come by and say hello. But he really appreciates us letting people know that you can come meet him. And he's a great guy. He's hilarious. He's funny. He's everything, Bud Bundy and more. I remember watching him and never thinking in a million years that I'd get to meet somebody like him. So if you guys could support, that would be amazing.
I think what could be really fun here with him too, and don't tell him this, but I think that what would be a really great thing for us to do, because one of my favorite things going back and watching those sitcoms from the late 80s and early 90s was that they started to try to time period their rooms and stuff. Yeah. So there was always really fun toys. I remember
posters on the wall.
There's double XL in the background in a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air episode, right? And stuff like that, where the toy placement got in there or whatever. So it'd almost be fun to maybe ask him what was something that was really fun that they put on set that you as a kid, because look, he was a kid then, that you really were oh my gosh, I can't believe we have that in my room. I need
Was
that.
he a kid on the show? I kind of always felt like he was 25 years old playing a 14-year-old.
No, he started when he was 13.
Yeah, he was a
Married
kid
with children.
But he just had one of those looks, right? He looked like an adult head on a child's body.
Once you got past season 2 or 3, absolutely. Early on, he actually looks young. Him and Christina Applegate actually look like kids. And then once you get to the third season, it's
Christina Applegate?
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, right. There you go. That is the question, Brendan. That's the question. Yeah.
And then coming up in September, we have PokeCon Las Vegas. And we didn't get to the Pokemon this episode too much, but what I will tell you is that Pokemon is alive and thriving. And if you're not collecting and trying to catch them all, you're not trying hard enough. As everybody from the sports card, the shoe world, you name it, has gotten involved. But it will be September 20th and 21st at the Ahern here near the corner of Sahara and Las Vegas Boulevard. And we do have Jay Godey and Michelle Knotts, both announced voice actors from Pokemon representing. And you can see Michelle's credits are amazing. And then Michael Barnard will be joining us. He is a Garbage Pail and 80s, really probably one of the better 80s artists out there in producing art for the 80s stuff. And he'll be creating a custom exclusive Pokemon style card that you'll be able to get in the VIP package. Look, single day admission, just $10. 2 days, $30 for the VIP. Early entry, get a special badge and lanyard and a whole bunch more. Go to PokeCon LV, get your information there, and get your tickets. Also, vendor space is available as well, so make sure you guys do that. I know we're looking forward to it. It will be a lot of fun. And then just to not miss something that's happening in our backyard, we're 2 weeks out from the Las Vegas Card Show. Las Vegas Card Show will be occurring here in Las Vegas as well, so you can check them out. That's another event that'll be coming up. And Amazing Las Vegas Comic-Con is coming up as well here in Vegas. I know that the stores are going to have some free tickets. We talked to Jimmy J, the producer there. He's going to be sending out some stuff to the stores for us, so you have a chance to be able to win some tickets there. And I think we'll probably give some away through the podcast here as well, because there's some incredible creators for that. We'll talk more about Amazing Las Vegas next week, but we will have that coming up. And then finally today, I just want to mention that Frank sent me a message, and I'm going to get into it. It's pretty long, so I'm going to shorten it up just a little bit today. He had a lot to say here turning the page of June, and we are going to start with, we often push ourselves to the limit, thinking that our success is the only measure of our progress. But in reality, it's the harmony between all aspects of our lives that truly define success. We are investing in ourselves, not just financially, but in our relationships, our well-being, and our resilience. The struggle we face today will pay off tomorrow in ways that you can't always predict. But it'll be worth it. It's not just about getting to the finish line. It's about who we become along the way. The sacrifices we make are building the strength, wisdom, and character that will carry us through the toughest moments.
Wait. Who the fuck is Frank?
Did it blow it this time?